All right, now everybody wants to make more money, but the reality is there's some stuff your boss sees in you that you could be doing a little better. You want a raise, but the reality is you've got some issues that you aren't aware of that you're gonna need to address first. It's really easy to get caught up in a mindset of I'm worth more, I'm working hard, I'm putting all my time into this job, I should be getting paid more. And this hubris can actually lead us to distraction from what our actual performance really looks like. Now, what I mean by that is this simple concept. When it comes to your value at work and asking for a raise, you don't want to base your point on how much value you have. You want to base your point on all the areas where you're lacking value. For example, one of my guys might say, I'm the hardest working guy on the crew, I always outwork everybody, I'm always hustling, I'm always getting a lot done, like I think I deserve a raise. And the reality is that may very well be true, but maybe the reason he's not getting a raise, he shows up late every day. He's not very reachable by phone, so I can't trust him to be a contact point for other jobs in the future. Oftentimes, when someone's not getting a raise, it's based less on their positive performance and it's based more on their negative performance. So that's my first main tip to get a raise from your boss. Focus on where you're lacking, not on where you're excelling. If we were to generalize the concept of working for a boss, it would basically come down to this. Your boss has problems that he needs solved. So what he does is he finds someone who is capable of solving those problems and he pays them adequately based on how many problems they can solve. So my next tip is be a problem solver, not a problem creator. Here's two examples of an employee calling their boss to ask for help. The first one goes like this. Hey boss, what up? I'm looking at this and I can't figure it out. I don't know what's going on, but what we originally talked about isn't gonna work. So I'm gonna need you to take a look at this or I'll send you some pictures or whatever. Okay, that's scenario one. So here's scenario two, a different way of saying things. Hey boss, what's up? I'm looking at this and I know we talked about doing this originally and I'm not thinking it's gonna work. I think we might run into some issues here. So I'm thinking about doing this or this instead, which I think will accomplish the same task. I just wanted to run that by you and confirm if that was okay. Now, did you notice the main difference there? At the end of the day, both calls still bring a problem to the boss that the boss needs to have the authority to clear up. But the difference is the second call was much more concise and much better delivered to where it was able to condense the problem into a fashion that makes it easier for the boss to solve. Because the caller two thought through solutions before calling the boss to present them to the boss for confirmation. He can actually see that you made a solution and he just needs to sign off on it. This is also a great way to show off your problem-solving abilities to your boss because one, it shows that you are able to think like a leader in these scenarios, but it still shows that you respect your boss's authority. Now, number three goes a little something like this. Make everyone else worth more. Now, here's what I mean by this. Let's say, hypothetically, as a team leader, I make $20 an hour more than my team of 4 people. Now, the members on the team might be confused and think that's not fair, and say it's because I'm not producing 2 times as much as them. But where that value actually comes from as a team leader or even as an employee is you want to have a presence that makes your coworkers more valuable. For example, at my job, I use my problem-solving abilities to make everyone else more efficient. So if I see someone doing something in a way that's not as fast, I can say, hey, let me help you with that real quick. Let me show you this. And then they're able to get it done much quicker. And the kind of concept where rather than me being twice as productive as everyone else, all 4 people on the team become 25% more effective altogether, which leads to 100% surplus in productivity. And I want to stress on this too as well. Little efforts in this area do not go unnoticed. Bosses will always notice the first person to get started on the job site, the first person to get back to work after their lunch break, and the last person cleaning up at the end of the day. Little things like this stand out, and it's a huge way to influence the way your boss views you. Now on to number 4, be as reliable as possible. Everybody knows that the way to get more money at work is to take more responsibility. You get paid more for the more responsibility you have. And I can say from experience as a boss, the guys who are less reliable will always be given less responsibility. And reliability can show up in a couple different ways: punctuality and productivity, because you need both in order to be able to run a job. Because without production, nothing gets done. And without punctuality, nothing gets done on time. It also just looks unprofessional. And the reality is you do have to have both in order to move up the ladder. Because if I have a guy who's a total workhorse and can get a lot of stuff done and he's super smart, but he's never on time, why would I send him as the front man to a client's house to do a job if when I tell the client that we'll be there at 8 o'clock, I know for a fact he won't be there until 8:30? The reality is I won't, because I'd be shooting myself in the foot. The person I'm gonna send to the job is gonna be on time and they're gonna know how to get it done. And that's why those two things are super important. All right, on to number 5, which is take ownership. Now think of it like this. If you kind of use the ladder analogy for the position in the company, the boss is at the very top of the ladder. And the higher up the ladder you get, the closer to the boss you get. So what I'm leading to here is I'm saying that you should try to be thinking as much like the boss as possible. Try to anticipate and know his values and goals, which losses hurt him the most, which wins value him the most. This is a huge thing that I guarantee bosses will notice. When you start saying things like, hey, how are we doing on that takeoff? How much extra material do we have? Like, I don't want to have too much extra cost for you going into jobs. Or like, if we can tighten up our estimations, then we can probably save some money. Things like that. Things that if you heard an employee say that, you would say, okay, that doesn't affect your hourly rate. So you're thinking about me, which is valuable. But that can be dangerous, which leads me to point 6. Stay in your lane, in parentheses, until it's time to change lanes. Now, while you do want to be thinking like an owner, you also want to be careful not to veer too far out of your lane and really just start encroaching on your boss's space and neglecting your actual position. Whatever position you are in right now, give it 110%. Just give it your all. Dive into it head first, and the reality is if that overflows and you have extra capacity, that can be what you apply to other problems that are outside of your scope. But always, always, always prioritize your job title and your normal job responsibilities. All right, now my favorite number 7, last but not least, never be too proud for a certain task. If your boss asks you to do something that you don't particularly love to do it anyways. And you don't have to make it known that you hate doing a certain thing. If you're asked to do something that you don't particularly love to do, rather than throwing a fit about it, consider yourself sort of a morale leader or a morale champion on the job site. Because the reality is, doing tasks that suck, which happens all the time, we get it on every job site time to time. When you're doing it with someone who just has a can-do attitude, they're not afraid to just get in there and make it happen, and that's the person you have on your team, you're stoked every time. Because even just having that mindset takes so much pressure off of everyone else on the job site and even on your boss as well. And everyone will be aware of that. And if your boss doesn't see it, he will hear it from your coworkers. Now, obviously, there's more ways you can get a raise and more ways you can show your boss that you're going above and beyond. If you know of any other ways that I didn't touch on in this video, drop it in the comments so that way people can check that and we can just kind of keep the wealth of knowledge going on down there. I hope you know I'm gonna send this video to all my employees. I think there's a lot of value in that, and I can personally say if they heeded all of this advice, everybody would get a raise and productivity would go up and the company would be doing even better than it is. But other than that, I appreciate you guys sticking around and listening to me. And yeah, we'll talk when I make it to the job.